Hi everybody, welcome into a very special Talking Town this Monday evening. It's one where we are in mourning because we have lost a club legend in Trevor Whymark, but it's going to be an evening, an hour of celebration as we celebrate a fantastic career in Ipswich Town, blue and white. And joining me, who else could I ask to come on board the Talking Town time machine? The man who's seen them all, from Crawford to Kiwomya, to Mariner to Murphy. It's Colin. Welcome in, Colin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I'm fine. Just so the viewers know, I just thought over my shoulder there is the early 1970s away shirt. It's actually got the blue number 2 on the back, signed by George Burley. But yeah, that's the shirt that Trevor, God rest his soul, would have been wearing away from home at the start of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Through the 70s. Yeah, absolutely, Colin.
Yeah.
We were saying, weren't we, just before we came on air, it's, you know, when we think about town, we think about shirts and the 3 stars we have on, we proudly wear above our badge, or actually on the neck this season, is it? But traditionally it's been above the badge. It's a real shame to me that when you think that Trevor, Hall of Famer, club legend, missed out on that cup medal in 78, such was the rules back then, wasn't it? Just the starting 11 and the substitute would have got a medal. And of course his town career had come to an end by 81. So he misses out on 2 medals that probably his town career warranted, right?
Absolutely. I mean, because, you know, if we remember back, I mean, he was part of the great FA Cup. If we want to talk about the FA Cup just for a start, he was part of the great FA Cup run in 75 when we lost. No, I'm not. Tonight is not the night to talk about people like Clive Thomas. But that was the year, obviously, we lost to West Ham in a replay at Stamford Bridge. And, you know, Trevor, actually, in the first semi-final at Villa Park, the beat went off and Trevor played at centre-half for a while. He was very versatile, Trevor. In actual fact, he'd done it on several occasions. He could play at the back. He was very versatile, was Trevor.
It's great to hear, Colin. Well, Trevor was born May the 4th, 1950, in the Norfolk village of Burston, and he was spotted playing for Dis, Colin. There's a little piece I want to read to you in the Bobby Robson biography, Farewell But Not Goodbye, about how Trevor was scouted along with some other players. And Bobby writes this. He says, "We scouted Suffolk and Norfolk with a nick comb." There isn't such a thing, Colin. 11 miles east of Ipswich, you hit the sea. No players there, only fish. But wherever local clubs and schoolboy football existed in East Anglia, we spotted good players. And here's a great line. We put Norwich City in the shade. Trevor Whymark, for example, was from Dis, halfway between Ipswich and Norwich. We bombarded East Anglia with scouts thanks to Ray Tyrrell. Whymark, Brian Talbot, Mickey Lambert, Clive Woods, Laurie Civil, Roger Osborne were all captured on local football pitches and rewarded with first-class careers. So Trevor's town career, Colin, starts when he signs 1969. He has to wait about 9 months for his debut, which is at Manchester City, Main Road, February 1970. So he's gone from playing for this to suddenly being thrust in a huge crowd, most likely back in. I know you was at Main Road when it was standing room only. They lose 1-0 to a Fanny Lee penalty, I think it was. But it's amazing.
That was by the way, Matt. That was a great Man City side. By the way, you know, you were talking about people like Colin Bell and Mickey Doyle, Joe Corrigan. That was a very, very, very good Man City side at that particular time.
I think they won. I'd have to look this up, but off the top of my head, I think they won the Cup Winners' Cup that season, and Town was struggling to try and stay up. And I think they were very, very much relegation threatened in that February, but Bobby managed to turn it round, and with the help of young players like Trevor, just avoided relegation, Colin.
Well, funny you should say that, Matt, because Trevor Scott, I mean, we were struggling. I've often spoken about that on the show. Do you remember in them early days? I've often spoken about that. Yeah. And Trevor scored his first goal actually against Sunderland in that season, like, you know, in that struggling side, and that was at that time that was a vital goal actually, and so he he was in and out at the start, like you say, he came at 69, but at the 70, 71, he was in and out. He didn't play that many games for a start, but once, we'll obviously get onto it in a minute, but obviously once, because when he first came in the side, before Rod Belfort, you had people like Ron Wigg at the club, you had people like Mick Hill at the club who played up front. And then obviously, I spoke to you during the week, and then obviously Bobby brought in Rod Belfort from the great Leeds United club at the time in 1972, and Rod only stayed at the club. It was really weird, really, because he was a good player, a very good player. But obviously, you had Alan Clark, you had Mick Jones. A Budden. I don't know if Jordan was in there, but you had Alan Clark and Mick Jones, and obviously Rod probably weren't getting the games. And he came, but he only stayed at town for a year, for one season. Matt, but I like Rod Belfort, and so did my dad. He weren't the tallest, but he was broad, and Trevor really played that season. Trevor, I remember he linked really well with Rod Belfort.
I think, we were saying, weren't we? There was probably 3 strike partnerships, wasn't there, that Trevor Whymark was involved in? Obviously, the one with Rod Belfort for that season, like you said, he only stayed for one season. Then he's used in a deal to bring David Johnson, number 1, who went on to play for Liverpool, back from Everton to town. So it becomes Whymark and David Johnson. Then, of course, your all-time favourite comes in, Colin, Paul Mariner. I mean, just talk about that. I mean, what was the dynamic like? Obviously, you say Belfort was a smaller striker up on... I mean, look, Johnson and Mariner... and Whymark all go on and play for England. So, I mean, it shows you the eye that Bobby had for picking a player in those early days, doesn't it?
Well, to be fair, Matt, to give you some kind of perspective, David Johnson was probably around about the same height as Rod Belfort, probably maybe a little bit slimmer. John, he didn't always play in the middle. Sometimes he'd play. Trevor would stay in the middle, and Johnny would go out wide sometimes. He had a lot of pace, Johnny. And I said about the link up between... I love talking about this, I talked about the link up between Whymark, Trevor, and Rod Belfort. But I'll tell you what, as soon as Johnny came, there was there really was. There was like a telepathic...
Wow.
Understanding. And John, he was good. He stayed from 73 to 76. That's right. When Paul came, and they scored quite a lot of goals between them. And like I say, Trevor was the target man, good in the air. Actually, could hold the ball up really well. He had a lot of Paul about him. Actually, although he weren't as big as Paul, Trevor, I'm talking about. he could hold it. He could lay it. He could turn. He'll put Johnny in, if Johnny was out wide. And Johnson could finish, and so could Trevor. They were a formidable partnership. They really were. And it didn't surprise me Johnny played for England.
Yeah, exactly. I read somewhere, Trevor, that Colin, that Trevor was one of the best headers of the ball ever seen at Portman Road in an Ipswich shirt. Would you go along with that? You'd agree with that?
Trevor Whymark was absolutely unbelievable in the air. He had this habit of being able to, like Kevin, actually, everybody always said about Kevin, including me. He had that knack of being able to hang in the air, and he was, as you say, he was a fantastic header of the ball. I mean, the only players, I said the other day, the only players I'd say in the town shirt, I'd say were as good in the air as Trevor were Billy Baxter, who was the centre half, Ray Crawford, Terry Butcher, who I didn't mention the other day. I'm talking about in the air, Kevin Beattie. I mean, they would probably, arguably, be the only four odd players that I'd say were anywhere near Trevor. But Trevor, you put a ball anywhere near that penalty spot, right on his forehead. I mean, you've got to remember, Matt, at that time, we're talking about Ray Clements. We're talking about Peter Shilton. We're talking Pat Jennings.
Joe Corrigan.
We're talking even an agent, Gordon Banks, and he would have still been about then. Playing for Stoke, Trevor scored a magnificent header. I remember up at Churches against Liverpool past Ray. I think he scored a header at Tottenham once, if I remember rightly. I know he scored. I remember going. I think that was one of the first times I went to White Hart Lane with my dad. I know Trevor scored down there, and he was just. Yeah, he was prolific in the air. I'll tell you what, there weren't many players who Trevor can beat in the air.
Did he have like a really big spring, Colin, or was he just positional that he would just arrive at the near post, far post on the penalty spot? I mean, what do you think it was?
He did have a good spring, but a bit like John, a bit like Walkie. I think his timing of his runs, and his understanding of that role at that particular time was second to none. And I know Bobby, is definitely as a player, as a number 10. Bobby thought the world of him. I mean, he was an absolutely excellent target man. He really was.
Let's get into some of Trevor's career then, Colin. We've picked out 3 games, haven't we? And a couple of extra ones as well. But let's start with, while we lament the fact that he never was part of the 78 Cup winning side or the 81 UEFA Cup team, he did win.
Can I just say something there, by the way, Matt?
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll just say something about that. Look, I know I'll keep referring to Dad here, but I mean, I will do because I spoke so much to. I remember saying, Dad, he hardly played many times in that FA Cup run. And I remember saying after we beat West Brom, I remember saying to Dad, God, that's such a travesty, Trevor. Can't play in this final. But what I was going to say was, in defence of David Geddes, although he didn't win Man of the Match, because Clive Woods won that, David Geddes was absolutely outstanding in that final.
I don't know if this is a myth or something, or just a rumour, but because obviously Margaret Thatcher was in the crowd that day, as one of the special guests, and it had Trevor Whymark as number 10 on the programme, and she thought Geddes was Trevor Whymark, didn't she? And she said, that Whymark's a good player. And it was David Geddes.
I've still got that programme, actually. You've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah.
In my wall unit, you've seen it, haven't you? And I look at that occasionally, and did have Trevor Whymark down as 10, Yeah.
Well, anyway, as I was saying, unfortunately, he didn't win that, but he did win silverware for Town, and he did it at Currow Road, Colin, and you were there. 2-legged affair in the Texaco Cup. Now, call me Mr. Picky, but I think the Texaco Cup is better than its original title, which was the International League Board competition. But Texaco, the petroleum company, came on board. This is in the early days of sponsorship, really, wasn't it? And they put £100,000 down on the table. I was looking at, if you look at what the average salary was back in the day in '73 for a year, Colin, was £2,000. So for the average male, working man, so 100,000 will probably be in excess of $500,000 now. And you consider someone like Brian Hamilton went to Everton for 40 grand, a considerable amount of money for a competition that was probably seen as just a bit of a calendar filler, really. But that was basically an invitation trophy, Matt, as you know, and just 16 teams entered at that particular year, and we beat St Johnstone. They were all over 2 legs. We beat St Johnstone in the first game. We beat Wolves. Scottish clubs, wasn't it? For people who don't know, it was like Anglo-Scottish.
Yeah, English and Scottish. Then we beat Wolves over 2 legs. We beat Newcastle home and away, St James's and Portman Road in the semi-final. And then, of course, we come to the game that we're going to talk about. And I mean, for a little sponsored tournament like that, I mean, it was quite incredible, really. It was nearly the best part of 30,000 at Portman Road.
Oh my God.
And now I think there was 30, because obviously the second leg is where the cup's going to be presented, and and the game's going to be finished. And there was, I think it was 34, nearly 35,000 at Carrow Road. So those two ties got watched by basically around about 65, 66,000 people, which was amazing, really.
Yeah.
But I remember going to the second leg, especially. I remember Diesel Morris scored twice in the first leg, who funnily enough, went on to play for Norwich, only for a couple of seasons, but he went to play for Norwich after that. And then the second leg, I can't remember what end Trevor scored. Trevor scored. I remember Woodsy scored up at Barkley.
Yeah,
Clive Wood scored up at Barkley, our second goal. And those were in the days where you used to go to the game, and if you was there first, you just got in. You just got in, and there used to be like 3 or 4 or whatever it was, 3 or 4 special trains just go there. It used to take about like 8, 9, 10,000 down there, like, and
it's unbelievable.
that was. I'll tell you what, that was some atmosphere that night because we were all in the Barclays, like, because the away fans were in the Barclays in them days.
Yeah.
There was a time a few years earlier where they used to put you up a river end, but in the final we was up at Barclay, and I remember that was an absolute atmosphere that night. We've only playing for the Texaco Cup, but we're not just playing for that, we're playing for obviously the pride of Anglia, and we beat them 4-2 on aggregate, and job done. Thanks, Trev.
And did we get given the trophy in the centre circle at Carrow Road, Colin? Is that how it worked?
No, I'll tell you what. I can remember it as about as yesterday. Millsy obviously went up to get the trophy, and they presented it like which is the stand, the stand where the players come out of Norwich now.
Yeah,
used to be obviously an older one then, but it just went up the steps up in there. I suppose it went where the director's box was, that kind of thing, and they got it in there, and then they like shook the crowd. I can't remember them coming round. I don't think they would have dared. I can't remember that.
We'd pay money to lift the trophy at Carrow Road, don't we, Colin, now?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Shows you how times have changed. Got a little piece here in one of the old programmes I've got here where Trevor was in his testimonial year at Ipswich. And it says here in the programme, Norwich boss to join dinner lineup. So this is 78, 79. Colin. Norwich manager John Bond has joined the list of speakers at the Sportsman's Dinner in support of the Trevor Whymark testimonial. Can you imagine such a thing in 2024? The Carrow Road boss, who seems to be earning a reputation as the man the town fans love to hate, is sure to get a warm welcome. I love the sound of this. At the Copdock International Hotel on Monday, January the 29th. He completes a star-studded bill of speakers along with, get this, Jim Rosenthal, presenter of BBC Radio Sport on 2, Steve Curry, football writer on the Daily Express, Ray East, Essex cricketer, and chairing the evening, John Motson from Match of the Day, with cabaret from Mike Felix. I can only presume he was a comedian / vocalist, singer or something. But can you imagine such? I mean, that was John Bond, Colin. Can you imagine such a thing now? A Norwich manager coming to an Ipswich Town player event. I mean, just shows you how times have changed, doesn't it? Even back.
Yeah, and when you think about it, there was a lot to be said for that back in the day. People were different, weren't they, Matt? And the game was different. And
Bobby Robson and John Bond got on very well, didn't they? They were both great characters of English football, weren't they? Yeah. John Bond with his cigars. He was a very eccentric character, wasn't he? It was a little bit more friendlier, I suppose, back then.
Because he went on to obviously manage Manchester City in the semi-final in '81.
Yeah, and, of course, paths crossed again.
And he brought in a evil so-and-so called Jerry Gow just to bite Arnold Mirren and Franz Tyson's legs, and my God, he did that as well. He was I wouldn't say he was a great manager by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll tell you what, John Bond knew it, by hook or by crook, he knew how to win a game if he really had to. He done the hard yards sometimes.
Yeah,
but actually, just to finish on that one, we even had a presentation at the We even had a presentation at the town hall with the Texaco Cup. That's brilliant. And there was thousands there, Matt. There was thousands there.
I bet there was.
Yeah.
Were all the players on the balcony and stuff?
Yeah, just like FA Cup and the UEFA. Yeah, it's unbelievable. That was good. That was good.
May 1973, that was. Our second game, Colin, 2 of the 3. We're going to stick with a little bit later in the year of 73, October. We're playing in the UEFA Cup against Lazio. We've won the first. This is the second round, Colin. We've won the first round by beating a small team from Spain called Real Madrid. We've dispatched them 1-0 over 2 legs.
Do you know what, Matt? I can remember the start of that. I remember at the start of the season when that draw was made, and we're not silly. I can remember saying, "Dad, God, we got Real Madrid."
Yeah, I'll bet.
Gunter Netzer played for them. He's played with Germany.
Yeah.
Brilliant player. But I remember saying to Dad, we played Real Madrid. How far are we going to go in this tournament? And then Dad said, but if we beat them, that's him out of the way. And we did. I mean, we beat him 1-0. I think Millsy scored, and then we went over to the Bernabeu in front of about 90,000 and drew 0-0 in the Bernabeu. Yeah, and this is what makes me laugh, Matt, because a certain lot, to coin Mark Ashton, a team that won't be named, right? Right? I love that when he says that, right? A team that won't be named. They play one in inverted commas super team in a European tournament and think they've won the European Cup. I mean, we played like Real Madrid in first round ties,
Yeah.
And Barcelona and the rest. But when we're talking about the Lazio, and I remember that because obviously Real Madrid come out and all the old, that's what you look for, they come out, oh my God, I'm going to see him in all white strip,
Yeah.
And then, of course, Lazio, the game you wanted to talk about, they come out and they had exactly the same. I thought they looked like Real Madrid. They were all white, But, but I remember that game. I remember that as if it was yesterday. And obviously Trevor scored a good first goal. And that second goal, the goalkeeper, if that had been the Bury Town goalkeeper, I think I'd have dropped him.
The first goal was a header, wasn't it, from Mickey Lambert?
It was. Yeah.
And then I think the second goal was Colin Harper sticks it into the box, and Trevor's there from about 6 yards, isn't he? Like you said, the keeper spills it over the line.
Another, and I'm going to use the word great because anybody, and I know there will be people in the chat who watch that side, and he was another, not because his name is Colin, by the way, but he was a fantastic player, Colin Harper, and he was local. Actually, he was a local lad, and he had a great left foot. I'll tell you what, Colin Harper was a very good player, and like Leaf, he had a great cross on him. His balls in the box were fantastic, and like I say,
it's a great.
Yeah, he was a very good. And of course, we lost Colin around about the same time as we lost Bobby Ferguson.
Really?
Yeah, that was very, very close. Yeah. So, there's another one who went far too young, Matt.
Yeah. You can watch the goals on YouTube, everyone, after the show if you're interested in seeing them. But they're pinpoint crosses. We talk about how good Trevor Whymark is in the air, Colin. And literally stick it on his head, doesn't he? For that first goal. From Mickey Lambert. And then so the 17th minute, the 43rd, Trevor completes his hat-trick on 47. But the 62nd minute, he scores his 4th goal. So we win 4-0, everyone, and Trevor Whymark scores all of them. It's a 4-goal haul. And the 62nd minute, Colin, is what basically starts something that will spill over into the second leg. But Colin Viljohn, one of your favourites, gets the ball, doesn't he? Shoots at goal. It actually hits Trevor Whymark in the back. The Lazio players think he's handballed it and pretty much stopped playing. Not playing to the whistle. Trevor turns around, rolls it into the back of the net, doesn't he? 4-0. Yeah. The Lazio players just lose their heads, don't they? They go straight to the referee, and it becomes a very ill-tempered game after that. And we'll get to that in just a second, Colin. But you must have been on cloud 9, surely, you and your dad. 4-0 home against Lazio.
Unbelievable, because I mean, I remember, like I say, we beat Real Madrid and we drew Lazio. I mean, these are top names in Europe.
Yeah.
And obviously, not just Lazio, but Roma and Napoli and Juventus. They maybe not so much. Oh, yeah, I will say them as well. I mean, most of the Italian sides have got a side to them that is not very nice. Most of them, and especially in those days.
Certainly in the 70s, they had reputations.
Yeah, and I mean, it kicked after the third and fourth guy. It kicked off a bit at Portland Road, and you kind of knew what was going to happen over there, and then like we said before, Roma, who a bit like Ipswich Norwich, Roma absolutely detest them, and they present Trevor with this trophy over in Italy.
Yeah.
Of course, that doesn't go down very well. Although we lose the second leg 4-2, win the tie 6-4 in aggregate. I remember reading a report. Obviously, it'd probably be in the East Anglia because I bought the East Anglia since the year top. And I remember reading about there was players like hiding behind David Best and the like, just to get out of the way of these players because they reckon as they were going down the tunnel, it was mayhem, and it just couldn't wait to get in the dressing rooms,
Exactly. One thing I've never asked you, Colin, in those European nights, for example, this one, how would you have known what the score was back in the day? Would the radio have had it, or would you have had to wait till the next morning for the paper? How would you have been kept up to date with how Ipswich were getting on against Lazio in that second leg?
Yeah, well, not just me and Dad, but most people in those days used to listen to the second half commentary.
Oh, right, okay.
They never used to have the first half. Used to have the second half commentary of games. The only time on the radio I used to get the whole game, it'd be the FA Cup final or England v Scotland. And I'm not 100% sure, I'm not going to lie, whether Ipswich Lazio was on that night. It would probably been maybe a European Cup tie, Liverpool or the like. Yeah, and probably Liverpool, because they were a bit like Man City, who won a league every year. But that was probably where you got your score, because in the early 70s, if somebody might correct me, I don't think, obviously, radio, our local radio stations weren't doing commentaries. I think it was just basically, you found it out through the radio too. Setting off commentary, which was generally Peter Jones and Alan Parry.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, legendary commentators.
Used to love Peter Jones.
We talk about different times, of course, and it was much more, European football wasn't so accessible back in the day, was it? I mean, you would never have seen Lazio on TV, for example. So they're much more innocent times, which is why probably Trevor was quite happy to go along, pick up that trophy from the Roma Ultras, not knowing the repercussions that would probably happen. You're quite right, Colin. We lose 4-2 out there, but the Lazio players and fans are incensed. And Bobby does document this in one of his other books, Time on the Grass, his first biography. And it says here, the pounding on the dressing room door was so loud, so incessant, that I thought the door would give way. In the corner of the room was a crate full of lemonade bottles. I pointed at those bottles and said to the players, take one each. If they get in here, make sure you don't miss. It's every man for himself. Alan Hunter, typical of him, you'll laugh at this, Colin, wanted to unlock the door and take them all on. But I had no intention of letting that happen. We had qualified for the third round of the UEFA Cup at the Olympic Stadium, Rome, in our second match in Europe. The date was November the 7th, 73. We had survived 6-4 in aggregate, but outside, the Lazio players were furious and vengeful for having lost. And there's repercussions on that in the end, Colin, because Lazio do actually win the Scudetto in Italy that year. They become champions. They were banned from playing in the European Cup the following year because of that. But
were they? I didn't know that, Matt.
Yeah, so there was repercussions on that, and Bobby says it's one of the scariest times of his life. He goes on to, if they'd broken that door down, he says, I don't know what would have happened, but I'd have been hiding behind Alan Hunter. I'll tell you that right now.
Because I mean, after we beat Lazio, I mean, we've knocked one of the best sides in Europe out in Real Madrid, if not the best side in Europe, and then we knocked out one of the best sides in Italy.
Yeah.
I hope one or two Norwich fans are actually listening to this, because you'll learn something.
They're being entertained and they're getting education as well. This is what we try to do.
Well, exactly. But I mean, I remember saying to Dad and my brother, I remember saying, how far can we go in this tournament now? Because we knocked a couple of really, really good sides out. It was kind of like, Matt, in the FA Cup. I'm not going to say league. Well, they're the same in the League Cup, really, but let's say the FA Cup. It was kind of like in the FA Cup knocking out, at that time, Liverpool in the third round, and knocking out, at that time, Arsenal in the fourth round.
Yeah.
So, you give yourselves a good chance, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. They go on and win the next round. They beat FC 20 of the Netherlands over 2 legs.
Right.
And then they lose in the quarterfinal to Lokomotiv Leipzig, then of East Germany, on penalties.
Right.
And there's another little rumour here, Colin. I don't know if you know if this is true, but it was very tense and we've lost on pens. And during that finale, apparently Alan Hunter went over to someone in the crowd and got a cigarette off them, had a couple of drags and gave it back to them.
I'll tell you what, he was such a character, Alan. Such a character, Alan. And I'll tell you something now. Alan, obviously, I don't know this is definite, but obviously, I'm just going by the fact that I knew Trevor after he finished playing. Me and my dad used to always talk to him quite a lot, actually. Him and Laurie. He used to come with Laurie Civil quite a lot and sit in the Pioneer. And Trevor was let's talk about Trevor. It's Trevor's day, Trevor's night. And he was a very, very lovely person. He really was. And condolences to his family, by the way, and his friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was a lovely person. He was unassuming. He was just a lovely person to speak to. Typical East Anglian lad.
Yeah.
And out in Lats, this is what I'm trying to get to, because I kind of knew him and my father knew him. I know my dad had said the same thing. Somebody like Alan or Kevin would look after him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, Alan would look after him, because Trevor weren't the kind of person who'd be looking for a fight, No,
of course. He was, like you say, he's come through the ranks. A lad from South Norfolk comes to Ipswich, been spotted playing for this. Now he's thrust into European limelight. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, can you imagine if someone scored 4 goals? Say Delap scored 4 goals for us in the Premier League or something, Colin. It would be just like, be leading the headlines on Sky Sports News, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Colin, Trevor don't do it once, does he? He does it 2 or 3 times in his town career. We're going to come on to another one in just a minute.
You got to remember, Matt. Let's get this in right now before we go any further. Only Alan Brazil and Ray Crawford in the European Cup and Alan Brazil against Southampton have actually scored more than him in one game.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? That's
5.
I'm gonna test you here, Colin. I'm sure you'll get this. So that 73 season, Trevor finishes on 17 goals in all competitions. Who do you think? Who do you think just pips him with 19 for that season?
In that season,
we've mentioned him already. Earlier in the show. Goes for 40 grand up north.
Oh, Brian Hamilton, yeah. Brian. But I'll tell you what, Brian Hamilton was very prolific for a midfield player. He really was. Yeah, very, very prolific. Yeah, Brian Hamilton. Yeah. Good shout that. Yeah.
We're going to move
on. And again, we're talking about another lovely person.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I've met Brian. I have met. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Even though he's got Norwich connections, lovely fella. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on to one of your favourite games of all time, Colin. And when I sent you the clips over earlier today, I feel like if Ipswich was to do, those like things where they put like stuff from an era and you bury it, don't you? And you find it years and years later. I think if I wanted to put a highlight reel of Ipswich Town performances into a box for someone to find in 100 years' time, I think I'd like to put this game in here, because it's Ipswich Town 7, West Bromwich Albion 0. And as you told me, it was Paul Mariner's home debut in which he scores in. And lo and behold, Trevor scores another 4 goals. This is 3 years on. This is actually 48 years to the week, Colin. It's November the 6th, 1976. And do
you know what?
There's some phenomenal goals in this game, isn't there? Phenomenal goals.
This is one game that will always stay in my memory until the day I die. really. You
It's
know,
phenomenal.
we've got to remember. You know, I've seen us put. I think it was 8 past Skid Oslo. I saw us put 7 past Southampton. In the first division, by the way, Premier League, the young people who don't think we ever score any goals.
It's what we used to do.
You know, 6-0 against Man United would be up there, obviously.
Yes.
But that game, I remember it as under the lights. You know, it was a Saturday, but obviously, you know, that time of year the lights were on, makes a difference, as you know. And Paul had made his debut at Old Trafford actually, and I can't remember if he scored or not. I think he might have done. I think we beat United that day. Actually, I think it's 2-1. Something like that. Anyway, obviously home debut. Everything. Oh God, we've got to see Paul. You know, we've got to see Paul. You know, big sign, and he was a big sign at the time. And Trevor. Oh God Almighty! It wasn't the fact he scored 4 goals. It was the 4 goals he scored. I mean, I've got to, I know it's not going in sequence, Matt. I've got to talk about the goal up the North Stand.
This is the goal that Bobby Robson describes as the goal of the decade.
I can't remember. I don't know whether it was. I don't know whether it was Ace, Phil John. I can't remember. Played the ball into Trevor. I think he took it on his chest. Done this. Played it round the corner. Paul's played an unreal. I mean, this is debut. If we got the home debut, he's played an unreal 1-2 with Trev. Right? It's something match of the day would have been all over. Oh, that Michael Richards, how he keeps going on about Bloomin' Ireland, right? These two have played this unbelievable 1-2, and trust me, it was. You know, played it in the Trev, and what a finish past Osborne. I mean, Osborne that day. I mean, you know, always talk about, you know, Gab always, you know, jokes about the physio. Well, Osborne needed that day because I'll tell you what, Trevor put one right past him. Beat put one past him at about 90 mile an hour. Paul Mariner, on his home debut, put one in top bins at about 70 mile an hour. I was up the North Stand with Dad. I swear to God, I was up the North Stand with Dad behind all those goals, and I can see and hear them hitting the net as if that was yesterday. Wow. I'll tell you what, that was an unbelievable game to have witnessed. 100%. And Trevor, I'll tell you, Trevor was just, Paul had a hell of a game, but I'll tell you what, Trevor was on the day, was nigh on world class. It was unbelievable to watch live, absolutely live.
Again, you can go onto YouTube, put Ipswich 7 West Brom nil in. You can go in and watch those goals. Yes, Bobby Robson, that second goal that Trevor scores, his second in the Hall, describes that as goal of the decade. It's actually George Burley who puts the ball into
Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, Matt. Go on.
It's George Burley who puts the ball into Mariner for the 1-2 with Trevor, and then it's Delap times 1,000, isn't it? That shot to the right of the keeper, isn't it? At the North Stand. Then it's a phenomenal goal. He actually scores the first one. Is the ball comes in from a corner. We talk about a great spring. The beat gets up. He's heading it sort of goal bound. Trevor traps it, taps it in. That's his first one. His actual hat-trick goal is probably the one that you could probably gloss over, just a simple tap in. And then the fourth one, he scores right in injury time. Again, it's another long-range effort that the keeper carries in. But you're right. I mean, Johnny Walk scores from distance. I think he scores the second goal. Yeah. It's a really good finish. And like you say, the beat with that, he goes on a little bit of a run, doesn't he? And then a left foot shot goes in between the keeper and the crossbar. And Jerry Harrison from Match of the Week goes, pick that one out. I mean, it's a phenomenal finish. And then the icing on the cake, of course, is the Paul Mariner one on his home debut. He looks like a winger playing centrally, doesn't he, Colin? He goes right down the middle, all on his right foot. And like you say, sticks it in the top bin, and it's another 4-goal haul for Trevor, and it's a 7-0. West Brom had a good.
I'll tell you what, I know it's Trevor's night, but that goal Paul scored that day, or that evening, or kind of even. Trevor's goal was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, absolutely unbelievable. I would have loved to have heard the post-match chat between PM. You've got to remember, as his home debut, for God's sake. Yeah. I'd have loved to have known what Trevor and Paul said to each other when they got in that dressing room.
Yeah, I'd love to know. Yeah,
And I'll tell you what, I want to say this. It's going to make me choke a bit. Let's just hope and pray that Trevor and Paul are back together.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Colin. Probably replicating that goal we were just talking about.
The
goal of the decade. Yeah,
bless them. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a good chance to say. Would you say that out of those three striking partnerships we were talking about with Belfit, John T, the first, and Paul Mariner, do you think Whymark Mariner was the best of those three partnerships? Do you think?
I'd go PM Trev.
Yeah.
Johnny Trev.
And then Rod
Belfort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what though, Matt. I've got to be fair. Although I put PM and Trev as top, Johnny and Trev would be a close second.
Yeah. Sounds like from what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Just moving on to 1977, we're coming towards where Trevor gets his cap for England. But February 1977, Ipswich Town 5, Colin, Norwich City 0. Trevor hits a hat-trick at Portman Road. Walkie and PM also get goals. Do you remember that game? 34,735 in Portman Road that day. Unbelievable.
I'll tell you what, Matt. I do remember. Obviously, you always remember a 5-0. I'll tell you what I did today. I did actually jot a couple of teams down because what I do is for people. You know, I love doing these things. You know that. And what I did is obviously I more or less knew the town side, but I put the Norwich side down as well. Just to jog a few people's memory. Yeah. Anyway, I don't often go with notes, but I had to with this because obviously I didn't know the Norwich side. You know, I'd have probably named 8 of them. Anyway, the Norwich side was Keelan, Ryan, Sullivan, Machin, Duncan Forbes, God rest his soul, by the way, Powell, Jimmy Neighbour, used to play for West Ham, Kevin Reeves, very good player, went on to play for Man City, Gibbons, Steele, and Martin Peters.
Oh, there you go, 66.
And Ipswich's top side that day was Cooper, Burley, Mills, Talbot, Hunter, Beattie, Osborne, Walk, PM, Trevor, and Woods. And the substitute was Eric Gates. You know what I mean? What a lineup that is! And in the return game at Carrow Road. Obviously, you always remember a good result. You always remember it. And Bobby didn't lose many derbies. Trust me, he never lost many. He lost a couple, but he didn't lose many. We won 1-0 at Carrow Road in later on in the season, and guess who scored? Trevor, bless his heart. 24th minute.
Amazing how history repeats, isn't it, Colin? You fast forward all those years later to the late 90s, and Alex Matthews scores a hat-trick, and we beat Norwich 5-0 at Portman Road, and it's a full house, etc., etc. Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? That was February 1977. And then later that year, October the 12th, 77, he gets his first and only cap for England, Colin, against Luxembourg in a 2-0 win. Paul Mariner scores in that game. Do you know who scores the first goal in that game? It's a little test for you. You might not get this. Think Liverpool.
What? Liverpool in the England game?
Yes. Liverpool defender.
Paul Mariner.
PM gets the second goal. The first goal was scored by Ray Kennedy.
Yeah, Ray Kennedy, Liverpool. God rest his soul. Yeah. God rest his soul.
You were very right. You said to me that you thought that game was the last one that Kevin Beattie had. Kevin Beattie's last England cap. You were totally correct. That was the 9th of his 9th England caps. It was Paul Mariner's first England goal, first of 13, and Trevor's only appearance. He comes on as a sub in the 65th minute to replace another Liverpool player in Terry McDermott. And the beat came on for Dave Watson. Remember him? He was hard as nails, wasn't he? Dave Watson in the 69th. Do
you know what, Matt? I was thinking today because I jotted down the side, and if I go through them, and obviously there's one or two that I didn't look up on, so I'm not going to say yes or no. But Ray Clements Ray Clements obviously is no longer with us. Neither's Trevor Cherry.
Yeah.
Dave Watson, I'm not sure of. Kevin Beattie's no longer with us. Emlyn Hughes is no longer with us. Ray Kennedy's no longer with us. Ian Callaghan, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, so I'm not saying. But Dermot, I'm not sure. Trevor, God rest his soul, is no longer with us. Ray Wilkins is no longer with us. PM is no longer with us. Trevor Francis is no longer with us. Gordon Hill, I'm not sure, so I don't comment on things I'm not sure about. But so you've got about 75% of that side, and it's a 1977 game. It ain't like as if it was 800 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's like Butch Wilkins, Ray, Matt. Butch Wilkins.
Yeah.
Very, very young to go.
Yeah.
Emlyn Hughes, very, very young to go. In fact, Trevor and Paul and Kevin, very young. Terrible, really. Terrible. So sad.
It's amazing to think we had 3 players involved then, Colin, in PM and B and Trevor. But that was part and parcel back in the day, wasn't it? Look, we were all talking about will Leaf make his England debut this season? Could Jacob Greaves get involved? Will Liam Delap go on and play for England? It was pretty much seen that Ipswich Town players would be capped by England back in the day. There's only ever been 12 of them, but they was all in. It was always cycling over, wasn't it, Colin? Basically.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was just like, a coin of phrase. So it's just like I couldn't convey about, wasn't it, in those days?
Yeah.
And I suppose a lot to do with it is the fact that a lot of our scouting network. A lot of our scouting network was based in the northeast, generally very, very good English young players we used to bring down.
He set it up
generally most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise, isn't it, that 5 years later Bobby goes on to become the England manager. When you think about all these players,
absolutely,
that he puts together. All right, Colin. Well, we're winding down now. We've come to the end of Trevor's Town career. Like I said earlier, it went from 1969 through to 1979. Once he'd finished at Ipswich, Colin, he went over to Canada to play in the North American Soccer League. And if people have not heard of that before, think of kind of like the Saudi Pro League now, where kind of people at a certain age are going out and, something that was new, you could earn money. You think of all the razzmatazz around 1970s America, Colin. And Trevor goes out to play for the Vancouver Whitecaps. And you had people in the NASL, it was called back in the day. I think it ran from probably maybe 1970 through to 1984 until it morphed into what we have now, which is the MLS. But Pele was over there with the New York Cosmos, Franz Beckenbauer was there. Johan Cruyff was playing for LA Aztecs. George Best was actually making appearances for several clubs.
I think Mike Summerby went out and played in that.
Yeah, but Harry Redknapp certainly went over. And would you believe it?
Summerby and George Best were really good friends, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's a chance for those kind of pros in their kind of early to mid 30s to go out and earn, a little bit more money than they probably would have done here. And would you believe it, Colin? Trevor goes over there and actually wins the title there with the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
To try and get it, they were trying to get American football fans. So instead of the Super Bowl, it was called the Soccer Bowl. And they played against the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the final, of which Trevor scores both goals in the Giants Stadium in New Jersey in a 2-1 win. Alan Ball's in that Vancouver Whitecaps side, Colin, and sitting on the bench as sub-goalkeeper is Bruce Grobbelaar before he makes the move to Liverpool. Playing for Tampa Bay Rowdies was Rodney Marsh in the twilight of his career.
Rodney.
And a future Ipswich Town coach in John Gorman, Scottish, came over and assisted.
Did he?
And such was the interest that when they went back to Vancouver and paraded the trophy, like you were saying earlier, the Texaco Cup and everything, 100,000 people were in the streets of the city of Vancouver to see them lift this soccer trophy. Obviously, it was kind of new to everyone over there. So, it's fantastic that he had that moment, I think. And now, here's the moment now. Colin's told you everything about him seeing Trevor. Here's the moment I get to see Trevor, albeit for 2 minutes. I
know what you're going to say.
Now, I'm 9 years old. I've only just got my season ticket. That's probably about 81, 82, 83. January 83 in Ipswich Town, listen to the draw on the radio, which is where it used to be. In Ipswich have drawn Grimsby in the FA Cup third round at Portman Road. And all the talk is that Trevor Whymark, now back from the States, back from Canada, now got a career in the lower leagues with Grimsby, will come back. He'll be captain for the day at Portman Road. It's his first time back at Portman Road. This legend of the club. Fantastic. And I was mesmerised by this. I can still remember it on Anglia News. And I'd gone to Cubs or whatever and said, oh, look, Trevor Whymark, Ipswich legend's going to be there and all that kind of thing. And he comes out and I think if you look on X, on Twitter and stuff, you can see photos of him in the black and white stripes and he's taking the applause of the crowd. 2 minutes in, Colin, he went down with a knee injury and had to be stretchered off. I don't know if I've ever seen someone carried off so quickly in a game. Lasted 2 minutes. The big comeback.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that must have broke your heart, to see a legend come back and
my dad was like, we're going to see a real Ipswich Town legendary play for England and scored 4 goals and that. I was like, I can't wait for this. In 2 minutes. Trevor didn't deserve that, did he? He deserved a fantastic comeback to Portman Road. And
he must have loved that. I mean, he must have loved that. And another thing I've got to say, we're doing a bit of a rewind here, but when you think, thinking about that shirt there, not that he'd be wearing it at Old Trafford, but thinking about that era, like really early 70s when we used to go to places like Old Trafford and win, and actually I got a programme in my shed, a really early Man United Ipswich programme. And even when Trevor first started playing against United, you would have still had, in the twilight of his career, you'd have still had Charlton on the side. Yeah. Arguably the greatest centre forward ever played for England. In my opinion, George Best, arguably the best player, best non-English player ever playing the top flight. You'd have Nobby Stiles in that side still, twilight of his career. Hard as nails, Paddy Crerran. You'd have Alex Stepney in goal. I mean, and these lads, like this lad from Dis, and the like, bless his heart, you would have had those lads coming out at Old Trafford in front of 40, 50 odd thousand. And that was Bayern then. That was different at Old Trafford than it is now. Yeah, trust me, I've been there. Yeah. And to go into that Lions Den, against that standard of player, and come out with 2 points, as it was in those days.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Shows what a caliber of player the like of Trevor was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Colin. I totally agree with you. And we don't want to finish on a downer with him getting carried off at Portman Road. He does come back to Portman Road and actually starts becoming a coach in the Ipswich Town Academy. So it did end nicely, Colin. Look, Colin, it's been fantastic chewing the fat of you, looking back on Trevor's career. Any kind of just final words, really? I mean, we've done nearly an hour here, and we've spoken about.
Yeah, I mean, my final
legend, haven't we?
My final words are, and just recently, like I said, we've talked about, teammates of his. We're talking about Colin Harper.
Yes.
We're talking about David Johnson. Talking about the Beat. And if I miss out anybody here, by the way, it's because I'm probably getting nearer 68. But you talk about Harper, you talk about Tommy Carroll, talk about I'd say the Beat, PM, Jonty. A lot of his teammates, his good friends, have gone now, and sadly, dear Trevor. And like I say, I spoke to him on several occasions, and he was I wouldn't call him a friend because I didn't know him as a friend, but I knew him to talk to, and he was a lovely, lovely person. And I just hope and pray that he finds BM and Beat and everybody, up there, and they have a jolly old good game together, because that's what Trevor deserves. He was a good man, a very, very good man. And of course he'll have the gaffer up there to look after him.
Absolutely.
So yeah, But that's been good. That's been great talking to you, and I love talking about the old days. I know a lot of people think, oh, here he goes again, but they were great days. And if it weren't for the likes of Trevor, like Mark has said tonight on the radio, you know, these players have made this club, and what a club they made it. Fantastic people, fantastic players, and Trevor, God rest, you know, God bless you, mate.
Yeah, well said, Colin. Fantastic. Yes, I second that. A fantastic player, club legend. Thanks for the memories, Trevor. God bless. We won't forget you. Good night, everybody. See you soon.